More boxes.
Oh yes, more boxes. Jarrett Keithler is literally the Antichrist, and I say that because I'm a human being, guys. I'm a normal, grown-ass man, and when a grown-ass man gets a box from literally one came from UPS, fuck them, one came from FedEx, one came from OnTrack, I don't even know who OnTrack is, and another one came from DHL, I want to open it, but he's on your side. Jarrett Keithler fights for your rights to see what's in these boxes. This is probably, second to Garrett, one of the most exciting companies to work with for me. And the reason why is I've been buying their products for years. Long before I even knew that Tile was a Michigan company. They have sent us all of the badass goodies for this Corvette. I will tell you guys right now, this is something that's very important, is that when it comes to, I'm gonna say sponsored, but partnered content like this, I've spent more than most people have with Tile, long before I ever even talked to them about sponsorship or working together. And so it's very exciting that when you put your money where your mouth is, people see. And in this case, Tile took great care of me with some of the coolest pieces to this puzzle. And I set them over here. There are two major things that Tile is supplying for this. One should be a sexy ass wastegate.
Whoa.
That is pretty nasty.
That looks sick.
As you can see here, in full disclosure, it's a sponsorship piece, which this will never leave my side anyway. So this is a badge of honor for me. So this is, I think it's MVR, MVS, one of the two. I gotta make sure I get the naming correct. Otherwise, I'll share with you guys bad information. Look at this. This is, if any of you guys have ever purchased a wastegate, this is heaven in a pogo stick. We'll do the 5-second how a wastegate works. This stays closed and prevents air from leaving the turbo on the exhaust side. This thing opens up, it prevents the turbo from building boost. Modulating or completely opening, and you get the turbo to produce 0 pounds of boost. It's just coming and going almost like a naturally aspirated car. It's just one more step. To make the optimal performance of this car, you use a variety of springs, which obviously all have different spring rates. This, Jared probably couldn't close any of these. Let me try it. Good job. Okay, you got lucky on that one.
That was easy.
Okay, you got lucky, yeah. They're stacked like this because not only can you have you pick a certain spring, but then you also stack them to do intermediate steps. So say, and this is just off the cuff, guys, say this one is a 3 PSI and this one's a 7 PSI. Put them together and now you have 10 PSI. So the idea with a wastegate, at least in my mind, is to make it as simple as possible. We're gonna have a solenoid, a thing that controls it, modulates it open and close, but really the goal is to get as close to what you wanna do with boost pressure with the springs. You don't want it opening too soon, and of course you definitely don't want it opening too late. Opening too soon and you lose your performance. You bleed off performance. You literally are opening up and it's losing performance before it even gains it. You wanna get to the right spring rate first, and then you use a solenoid to really fine-tune it from there. We had this issue with the 3-rotor where the 3-rotor was so powerful right off the bat that it was just busting open the wastegate. It was just shooting air out of the wastegate and it was saying, well, good luck. So many different choices and options for that. If you're sharp-eyed, you'll notice this little piece here has nothing to do with the wastegate. And this is the MVR, for those wondering. I think it's 47 mil wastegate. I currently run, here, let's go over here. Follow me. The 60 mil Tile wastegate on the 3-rotor. This has been beautifully adequate. That MVR would be overpowered by a 3-rotor. This bad boy goes back in there. All of these springs, which no joke, is such an amazing addition to this kit. And of course, all the V-bands and flanges that you're gonna have to weld on, because not only on this are we gonna weld it to the exhaust housing, but I want to recirculate it, only because I want this Corvette to be kind of tame. That's number one. Number two, some of you guys that know me OOG before even YouTube knew that I ran a website, I still do, called TurboRX7.com. This isn't a pitch for that, but one of the very first things I did with that was tried to find out the sound of various blow-off valves. I love a good blow-off valve, and this one right here is one of those. So funny enough, a blow-off valve isn't too far off from a wastegate in terms of like general function. The whole point is hold air back and then allow it to go through a certain point at a moment that you're trying to get it to. So this is the QRJ. It's very compact, it's very wild looking, but we've got some choices on how we make it sound. And you know me, I love obnoxious, loud blow-off valves. This thing though is capable of being recirculated. If you want to keep that, there's so many options with this. I'm very excited to try this out. I do have, again, showing you my support, I bought this. This is the more traditional one. Somebody modified it prior to me. Tile blow-off valve, and you can see the vents are on the side here. Suction, air comes out of the charge pipe, away you go. This is the more traditional tile blow-off valve. Sounds so sexy. I'm excited to see what this other one sounds like. And we have choices on how we make it sound. If we want to be super OEM-like, we can actually have this go back into the car. I'm not too familiar with that, but that's how OEM manufacturers did it. Even the RX-7, you know, when you take the RX-7 stock blow-off valve or air bypass valve out, that's what it does. So I'll probably go with the fancy looking one. Actually, I want to open this now. And for those looking, this is the part number.
You sure you're just using normal car parts, or are you building a nuclear fission bomb?
It's either a nuclear fission bomb or a trumpet. Yeah, these are all the various flanges for this. So we've got some serious options. This, to me, is part of what's gonna make LS Fest so damn fun, because if you know those high performance, fast reacting turbos, one of my favorite things to do is to rev them. So there is the beautiful tile stuff in a nutshell. This is not a sponsored product, so if it sucks, it's even easier to talk about. This is the Walter Davies, Davy Craig. It sounds like a pop singer, British pop singer from the 80s or 90s or something like that. Electronic water pump. This is the whole kit. And Summit, being smart, sent me a hat. You know what this hat's perfect for though? The return of Bob Dahm. Okay. Jerry, you see really the thing right here. There we are. Looks like a supercharger to me. It's got some sort of screen that I have to dick with and figure out how all that works. But this is part of our magic, adapting this assembly, probably with some AN lines, and getting the water system in and out of that car. Plenty to work with on that. That's gonna keep me busy off camera because it's a whole new system. Thankfully, that gets rid of so much hardware on the engine. And although Jared and I both roll our eyes at having this damn engine back in and out, this is the last time this engine is gonna do this. Just kidding, it's gonna do it quite a bit more, but we're stuck. Today's adventures with this core are actually pretty fun. The very first thing we're gonna do is address the fact that a lot of people save my ass on, so thank you to those of you guys that watch and A, submit part numbers, and B, catch me from making major mistakes. I know better too, but in that video where I was dicking around with the shaft play, had I tightened this, which I didn't, I'm not that dumb, I'm pretty dumb, but not that dumb. Had I tightened this and cranked it down, I would have destroyed a bearing, roller bearing in there. So we're gonna take that off real quick. Okay. For those of you wondering what I'm referring to, let me show you what people save my ass on. Obviously we have this. The part that can get messed up is actually inside of here. Take this assembly off. We're gonna have to get some of these bolts from the store, the correct length for the correct Billet Boss front cover, because obviously this relies on having all of the bolts in. I mean that's where the engine mount is for this point of the project. I hope some of you appreciate it. I think a lot of you younger audience do. Some of you older guys or more experienced guys definitely roll your eyes, and I encourage it. This video series is a good mix of trying to be entertaining, and I don't mean like, oh, screaming in your face, I'm a YouTube vlogger, but trying to be entertaining is in making the project entertaining. For me, I can't stand watching other people work on cars, so you guys have way more patience than me. It's to make it entertaining, but also sharing very interesting tricks and how things work with the audience without losing interest. I have a very short attention span, so you guys are way ahead of me on that one. All those bolts are off of it, so we'll go ahead and take this front cover off again. When I was doing this, and it's not gonna make it any worse doing it now, but I'll show you what I did earlier. See how I did this? That could have been bad really bad if I was actually tightening things down. So what people were messaging me about wasn't what I'd already touched, but inside of here, there is a roller bearing. We're gonna make sure I didn't mess it up. Now that we've completely voided the warranty on this car, let's go ahead and get a little bit further. Okay. Obviously, I will be looking up the correct torque specs for these bolts because we're reassembling this for a final time. This looks very similar. If you guys watched the video thoroughly on taking apart the 3-rotor, I feel infinitely more intelligent about messing this one up. It's like we were meant to go through this progression where for the very first time I took an engine apart, I had no intention on it running. Second time is a 3-rotor where we had no intention of putting it back together. And now we're actually tearing apart a motor that we're putting back together to run. So here is the magic that everybody has been fearing and worried about, and I have not damaged yet. It's right there. That can fall off when dicking around like I was. So like you see this, you see that. There's a chance for it to fall off. Be careful when you do that, because that's how easily you mess it up. There is very clearly a ridge on this side to account for that extra width. Actually, we'll simulate it because look at this channel otherwise, and it could do something like that. And then you crush it back together, and then now you have tons of little rollers in your oil system. The roller bearings just trashed, and away you go. While we're here, this is the front counterweight. Obviously, rotary engine is pretty stable, but you still need to offset some of the weight being thrown around because of the rotors. This is half of the puzzle. The rear counterweight is built into this, well, rear flywheel. You can actually see it. We're gonna spin it without damaging anything. You can actually see it right here, and you can see the rear counterweight is built into the flywheel.
What am I looking for?
This whole section of just metal. It's just raw metal right there.
This?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Because that's not, if you spin it around, so you can see just that chunk of metal, just a straight line of metal right there. That we're gonna use the flywheel from the 3-rotor, but any of you guys about to like cringe, that rear counterweight that's on there is meant for a 3-rotor. Weighs totally different. There's a different mass involved. So had I put that on there, which I wasn't going to, trust me, I was like, okay, that's meant for 3-rotor. 3-rotors are balanced differently. We need to find a 2-rotor. You find those on automatic RX-7s. This is the rear flywheel, I should say it this way, this is the rear counterweight that the flywheel now attaches to. Front, rear, thankfully, kind of hard to mix them up. The thing that some of you might notice, and I'm very aware of, very, very aware of, hurts my soul to do it this way. This isn't balanced for my motor. I'm literally putting a foreign piece of metal that does have balancing and attempts done to make it for the correct weight of the rotors. You know, that you see video of people with the whole assembly spinning in the air and they're trying to balance it. I'm very aware that this is not balanced for my motor. Unfortunately, in efforts to say, hey, I'm using a stock motor, but I also need to adapt it to a Corvette. This was a decision that had to be made. This motor's getting torn down after LS Fest, after we do the whole adventure with that, because, oh my God, Billet boss, we're doing some crazy things. So that's all I'll say at this moment, but this is the piece needed to put a new clutch onto the back of the car. God, this is just a wild looking thing.
Yeah, looks like a Tony Stark's arc reactor.
It powers, it's about the same size too. Okay, so everybody sees Tony Stark's reactor is not offset. Before I go to put this back on, and I'm gonna be checking it as we're doing this. Go ahead and find the key. The key is down here. But this rubber mallet would be very useful right now. There we go. We are not going to let that fall. With that in place, we are now going to reverse order everything that we did. You guys do not understand how fun this is. Yeah, braking an engine is the antithesis, the opposite of fun when it comes to stuff like this. But oh my God, this is so relaxing to me. Obviously the financial aspect is not relaxing. Just this overall worked in. Little tap, tap, taparoo. We covered this gear in the previous video on the 3-rotor, but this gear isn't needed from anything I'm doing, but it's still needed for the spacing. That controls the oil metering pump, which would spin off of here, even remotely doing oil metering, so screw that gear, but it is needed for the placement of everything. This is the moment, Jarrett. We better seize it and own it. Consider these moments golden. It's It's my M&M phase coming back out. It is time
For shiny parts?
for shiny parts. We're pausing that step because here comes one of the coolest next steps that is all new to me. As we showed you guys in the previous video, Billet Boss makes a badass front cover. We can go ahead and place it on there. First of all, basic physics. The front stationary gear and bearing and all that crap are in here. You have this much distance, and then you put a alternator out here. You have literally 8 inches. Jared, what says he had 8 inches of leverage. When you're cranking on that alternator, it's a simple, basic physical issue that you're putting a lot of pressure on that front gear, or excuse me, I should say the front bearing. You're gonna wear that shit out. And when you pull up on the front one, equal and opposite reaction, it ends up wearing the bottom one of the rear, at least on pre-stock cars. This is Billet Boss's front cover. So what they do is make my life possible at the moment. Oh yeah, by the way, not only on older models, you can see that this is also for the timing. This would be crank angle position. So what would be better than having a bearing back there? Having a bearing right at the source to minimize the leverage that the alternator could cause. So that's what this front thing is so perfect for. Making a bearing right here. And it doesn't have to be the oil-fed crazy bearing. It's a ball bearing up at the front that prevents the leverage of the alternator. Not only that, we're also using the front of this plate as our engine mounts. And so torque and forces are gonna be applied from here throughout the engine, through the bell housing, and so on, because everything's all connected. You know, got to transfer power down out the back. So this is what comes with the Billet Boss front cover kit. We're gonna unbox it as such. That is sexy. Here is the bearing I was referring to. This is new. This does not exist on any OEM rotary engine. This will be on the 4-rotor. It's obviously on this Corvette's 2-rotor, and ultimately it'd be nice to have it on the 3-rotor, but it's gonna look like, well, for people like Jarrett, specifically Jarrett, this is the center and part of your fidget spinner. And no, that's the first thing you thought of. You're like, that's a big fidget spinner.
Yeah, maybe I did.
This is very similar to the wax ring you put on your toilet, but except for in this case it's oil ring and tons of bolts to bolt that front cover up. Oh yes, thank you. I'm gonna take this bolt just to hold it in place, one hand tight, just so things don't pop out. This very clearly is a cover. And with the bolt heads countersunk on this side, I know for a fact it goes like that. I feel smart. This is a bearing, and its diameter is the same diameter as the outside of this. Okay. This piece has a key, matches the key that's found on this piece. My hands are covered in oil, so everything looks pretty good here. I would guess, I'm gonna Google this, but the oil seal is going to go one way or another. SKF, oh that's even nicer because I know very well that SKF makes bearings that fit on the Corvette as these ZR1's rear wheel hubs. Those are like the premium ones. The oil seal on first. I'm going to take the inner part of this bearing, stick some oil in my hands, put that on like so. Match this key in the right position. So far, so good. Oh no.
Oh no.
I did things in the wrong order. Hang on, don't say it, don't say it, don't say it, Jared. Nope. Fun is the correct word you're thinking of. Friends. Fuck. Yeah, look at that. Tank Tools, you just saved my ass on this one. Jarrett has no idea what this is. This is a get out of jail, not free, but undo what you've just done to yourself situation. What this does is applies even pressure, all sides of the bearing, and then you pop it out. Look at that already. Just hand. See? No damage to anything. What we're gonna have to do at this point because of our mistake, thanks Jarrett, because of my mistake, is make sure that that needle bearing, or the roller bearing, is set properly again. Oh, of course. Of fucking course. Oops. I pulled out the key. Okay, thank you, Mazda. The flywheel and everything is still pushed forward nicely, so that bearing is fine. So next realization is the bolt heads are going to be hidden behind that, well, the pulley assembly. So I'm just going to put this in like this and realize that that last piece has to be put in separately. Okay.
He's for sure about to shoot a laser beam.
Destroy Alderaan. You really can see though, with that bearing being right there, right inside there, that's just that much leverage versus that. Yeah, that's nice. So it's interesting. It was actually the keyway was what was pissing off why it's so tight. We're gonna put some grease on this. So I did oil this up. I'm sure grease would probably be a better option. And now we're on the final steps. Okay, pretty solid right there. Now it does replace the piece that's right there, so we have to keep that in mind. This is an old reference for Jarrett, but this is like the little bug that they put into Neo's stomach in the Matrix. Doesn't it look like it? Oh, no!
We love making ridiculous references to car parts.
These car parts are ridiculous to begin with. There we go. Front cover installed. Off camera, we're gonna take this off, swap pieces over. That's pretty boring, straightforward stuff. That's good. This has been something I've wanted to finish for a long time. I hate with a passion the stock RX-7 rotary crap that goes here for all of the coolant. It's the most annoying part of the car to me. It's caused me the most headache, and we get to eliminate it right now. I love this more than you guys know. So this is an AN fitting connector. Obviously you could probably adapt a lot to it. This does remove the entire water system completely. All that's going on is water in, water out. You have to push it. Comes with a nice ring right here. People like me are more likely gonna crush and ruin their own stuff. I don't deserve stuff this nice. You could use some like red grease to hold it into place, but that's not going anywhere. So these are the coolant lines in and out. These are the main ones that are adapted to the water system and of course the radiator. The one thing I was worried about, not so much with this, but with the overall solution with the Corvette, is the turbo. The turbo is a water-cooled turbo, and as such, it needs a turbo water line in and a turbo water line out. Both of those have to come from whatever we attach and pass this. I was originally going to use this, but that's actually right down here. This port right on the bottom is actually meant for a temp sensor. I suspect I'm one of the few people using this that has a small efficient turbo, because the small efficient turbos are really meant for more stock setups. As you guys see, this is just the beginning of putting these billet companies to the test. I obviously am not a billet user. I've not used billet motor parts yet on any of my rotaries. I personally, this is a personal belief that we need to be able to have options that are not OEM, because Mazda's forgotten about us. I do love Mazda, but the economy and everything, the way it's going, rotaries aren't a thing from OEM anymore. So we need to have and support companies that are willing to make parts.
Is this a rotary?
It's a T800 Terminator. I know, it's really funny because off camera, we look at this thing with where the alternator sits. Oh, we can mount that too. With where the alternator sits and with where all this is going, and it looks like some sort of like nasty futuristic motor, and that's exactly what it should look like. So this is the sort of support that all of these companies that have been part of this Corvette have been putting up, and it is impressive. It's made this car possible in this time frame. Billet Boss sent me a front mount bracket. This is not the correct piece for this car. I want to point that out. Nodder from Built to Apex is machining that right now. This was done as a huge bonus that I've put a lot on Nodder's plate. Nodder is allowed to hate me at the end of all of this, and with all the work he's done, I can't speak highly enough. So this is kind of a backup emergency plan. Nodder's piece is going to look something even more accurate than this. This is meant for a front cover plate like this, and that's certainly going to hold. As you can tell though, that's not going to work on this car. We can though, like I said, Nodder's working on the custom oil pan, custom height oil pan, custom shape oil pan. Man's a beast. So if this is secondary priority, if he, given the time frame, can't get to it, we'll put holes in here, and bolt the engine mounts onto the side of this. It's gonna look so wild. The reason I want that FD upper intake manifold is you're not gonna recognize the front of this motor when you see it. And all that's gonna change from here is that they're just gonna hook over this way. The mount's like right there. So it is this piece. Like if we could literally cut, weld it, turn it, that's what Nodder's piece is gonna look something like. Oh my goodness. Just a whole different era of rotaries to me. Go back to looking at a stock twin turbo FD and you're like, oh yeah, same core engine. This does eliminate the ability to use power steering, which you can do electronic power steering or electric power steering correctly. Obviously you can adapt a lot of different things. There's a lot of solutions here. This is just a very clean, simple way to do this. Corvette was always going to be electric power steering just because I never planned on going any other way. So I'm using some of the hardware from my 3 rotor. I just have to get that one. And we are all set. We have to get the belt for this. That one's got a lock. Well, that's a lock washer. So we'll just set it there. It does, as you saw in the previous video, clear the steering column, which is a beautiful thing. So we have something that's gonna sit kind of right there. Let's bolt up the turbo and look at this wild ass engine setup. I've never seen it before.
This is for sure metal porn.
Oh, it is. It really is. Short of us being able to weld anything, this is a metal porn situation. Here comes the abomination. Wow, that's so cool looking. It looks like 2 Autobots had sex. Maybe an Autobot and a Decepticon had sex, and this is their forbidden love child.
There's actually a fucking Autobot from one of the movies that has like an eyebrow like this. I mean, that's the eye.
Oh, no, there's their 2 eyes. It's like that little one that like is with the big. Remember that little creature, the little one? I think he hangs out with the Mustang guy. Looks like something that is like if you were to rebuild a P-51 Mustang airplane, but with modern tools and machine work. This is what a P-51 Mustang would look like to me. At this point, what we're gonna do, maybe off camera, is take off the flywheel, put the correct flywheel on, put the counterweight on, and then come Monday, so 3 days from now, we get the oil pan, which is also machined, so this is just gonna look nuts. The oil pan's machined, and then this is the last time the engine sits out. It's really, we're just getting it all fine-tuned, and it gets all put together and dropped in. That is definitely not an LS6.